In March 2018, the elusive author Gege Akutami began serializing a manga called Jujutsu Kaisen in Weekly Shonen Jump. A few years, an anime adaptation, more than one cosplay for Megan Thee Stallion, and an entire meme culture later, it broke the Guinness World Record for the most in-demand animated TV show. Impressed? But wait, there's more! The Shibuya station in Japan was decked out with life-sized JJK content. A memorial shrine was set up by fans for characters who died, taking the fandom's collective ability for logical thought with them. An actual restaurant named Malevolent Kitchen saw meme reviews about Chef Sukuna serving Gojo. Medium rare. The series has become so mainstream that I learned about MatPat's retirement from YouTube through a Sukuna "I'll never forget you as long as I live" meme. And the memes, man, the memes! They're an actual phenomenon. Like, imagine you woke up on the wrong side of the bed and you need your fix of coffee to make sense of the day, but your favorite coffee shop is closed. You'd probably start feeling the withdrawal, the frustration, and the desperate craving for that perfect cup of coffee. So much so that without it, you pass the day in a half-crazed state and not making much sense to anyone but yourself. Now take that feeling and multiply it by tenfold. This is what happens to Jujutsu Kaisen fans when the manga takes a break. They call it Lobotomy Kaisen, a state of fan frenzy where the community goes into overdrive, creating wild memes, and by wild I mean absolutely batshit insane, and obsessing, which is a very polite way to put it, over their favorite characters to fill the void left by the missing chapters. You know how when sorcerers hit a backflash, they reach 120% of their potential? It's like that, but instead of backflash, it's a break week, and instead of potential, it's just brain rot. It only makes sense and is even remotely funny when you're a degenerate whose brain has been scrambled from chronic online media consumption and manga or anime obsession. If you're not a degenerate whose brain has been scrambled from chronic online media consumption and manga/anime obsession, first off, good for you. And second, let's start from the beginning and try to understand what is up with Jujutsu Kaisen and how exactly the fandom got to this point. When it started off, Jujutsu Kaisen seemed like every other shonen manga. A plucky protagonist eats a cursed finger and gains powers that are not entirely his own. To master them and save people, he needs to be trained at a mysterious magical academy where he meets his friends. A serious, dark-haired fellow, not to be confused with Sasuke, a tough, spirited heroine, should not remind you of Sakura, and an overpowered, silly, goofy mentor who's got a part of his face covered, not to be confused with Kakashi. These few basic details can be taken from about 5 different series, which makes JJK seem like just another by-the-numbers story about magical teenagers battling the forces of evil. However, and I am not biased when I say this, Jujutsu Kaisen manages to set itself apart. While there are plenty of great stories out there, it's hard to ignore that the genre can sometimes feel repetitive. Jujutsu Kaisen, however, borrows themes and inspiration from other series while still feeling fresh and subversive. Itadori quickly realizes he's not strong enough to save everyone, and the path he's chosen will expose him to terrible things. Unlike the typical shonen hero who changes the world with sheer determination, Jujutsu Kaisen acknowledges this as impossible. It blends the genre's ideals with the harsh realities of modern life, while still leaving room for joy and hope. Jujutsu Kaisen is distinctly modern in its setting and tone, facing both the good and bad of 21st century humanity head-on. The magic that drives the characters in the show is known as cursed energy, which originates from negative emotions like shame, hatred, fear, and grief. The cursed spirits in the series aren't ghosts or monsters, they're formed from intense negative feelings generated by humans. Since they are a byproduct of human emotions, they are stronger and more prevalent in metropolitan areas, which are densely populated with people and their emotions. Mahito is one of the most detestable villains I've seen in anime in a long time. He's manipulative and childishly cruel, and his terrifying power reinforces his belief that life is meaningless and his to toy with, directly challenging Itadori's belief in a proper death. After the psychological torment he puts Itadori through in the Shibuya arc, no other antagonist has gotten under my skin quite like him. This highlights how Jujutsu Kaisen addresses the complexity of humanity differently compared to other shonen, even those I really love. The horror in the series isn't just for shock value. In fact, the whole concept of typical monsters that protagonists need to fight is presented in this series in one of the most unique ways that I've ever seen.
Am I right?
And I haven't even started on the power system yet. Cursed energy is something that has existed for decades and serves as one of the fundamental principles of the series. Cursed energy is what makes Jujutsu sorcery possible. As with it, various characters develop special techniques and domain expansions tied to themselves or their bloodline. Moreover, despite the variations in the use of cursed energy, the series has shown that cursed energy follows some fundamental principles that no one is exempt from. Heavenly restrictions are another intriguing aspect of Jujutsu Kaisen. With a heavenly restriction, a supposedly weak sorcerer could become immensely strong and vice versa. As seen in the series so far, heavenly restrictions are bindings that are placed on a sorcerer's body from birth, which enhance or limit a person's cursed energy in exchange for limitations or improvements on the person's body. One of the most popular applications of a heavenly restriction is Toji Fushiguro. Despite not possessing a single ounce of cursed energy, Toji was incredibly feared by sorcerers. His physical prowess was off the charts, and his lack of cursed energy made him more dangerous to sorcerers as opposed to less. Then we have cursed tools that are imbued with cursed energy and can help even non-sorcerers combat curses. While cursed energy is incredibly important to Jujutsu sorcerers and curses alike, utilizing it through cursed techniques is what truly makes it shine. To utilize a cursed technique, and we're getting really technical here, either the process of lapse or reversal is used. Lapse is the natural and neutral state of a cursed technique. Reversal, on the other hand, is more complex, as it involves multiplying negative cursed energy against itself to produce positive cursed energy. 2 negatives makes a positive. Ha! Maths. With positive cursed energy, fatal injuries can be healed, making it a highly sought-after skill. The world of Jujutsu Kaisen is filled with several powerful cursed techniques. Fans have seen a plethora of these abilities over the years, however, only a handful of them stand at the very top. Among the strongest of cursed techniques are inherited techniques. These are innate techniques that are passed down via bloodline. These techniques are especially prominent among the members of the big 3 families in the world of JJK. While not always the strongest of abilities, these are usually special enough to be preserved and passed down from one generation to another. Those who inherit these powers inevitably end up becoming strong, given that they are blessed with the tools to succeed from the get-go. Are you Gojo Satoru because you're the strongest? Or are you the strongest because you're Gojo Satoru? I'm getting teary. Let's not poke my wounds for too long. Gege Akutami, the creator, has said that he draws inspiration for his story and characters from various sources. Akutami's initial concept was influenced by traditional Japanese folklore and mythology, particularly the idea of curses and their impact on society. Before Jujutsu Kaisen, Akutami worked on a one-shot titled Tokyo Metropolitan Magic Technical School, which served as a prototype for the series. This one-shot introduced many of the core elements that would later be expanded upon in Jujutsu Kaisen. The success of this prototype allowed Akutami to develop it into a full series. And man, did that series blow up. When chapter 236 was released, I guarantee you that the whole world got its spoilers. Even before the show's anime premiered, Jujutsu Kaisen's manga was already seeing unprecedented success, especially for a first-time creator like Gege Akutami. In a 2021 survey conducted by Line Research, asking Japanese high school students what manga series they are currently into, Jujutsu Kaisen topped the rankings for both girls and boys. It was also revealed to be the second most watched anime series on Crunchyroll in 2020, only second to Black Clover, being watched in 71 countries and territories. The official music video of the series' first opening theme song, Kakai Kitan by Eve, reached 100 million views on YouTube in April 2021, being one of the fastest anime openings to hit such a number of views. In April 2024, data compiled by analyst Miles Thomas revealed that Jujutsu Kaisen led social media engagement among top anime and network dramas in the United States, boasting 11.2 million interactions over the past 30 days. This put it ahead of other popular shows like One Piece, Young Sheldon, and Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy! This whole numbers game supports my argument, but when you dive deeper into the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, you realize things are not as simple as all that. The actual fandom is incredibly reductionist and polarizing. A lot of nuance goes out the window, and people hyper-fixate on what they either love or hate, with very little in between. The Shibuya arc is where it is popularly believed Jujutsu Kaisen peaked. Perfect build-up, amazing storytelling, great character developments, and, of course, some of the best, most hyped battles in anime history. So what happened after it that was so bad? Well, from unresolved character arcs that left fans guessing to controversial writing decisions that don't align with the story's overall direction, it seems everything that the series does these days leaves fans on opposite ends of the polarizing spectrum. After the Culling Game arc and Gojo's dramatic unsealing, the story fast-forwards past a whole training montage to dive straight into the epic showdown with Sukuna. This time skip in Jujutsu Kaisen might unfortunately be one of the worst executed examples of this storytelling tool in modern shonen. It was a rush job that left fans feeling cheated out of some much needed character development, especially since the heroes haven't had a moment to catch their breath or bond since the Shibuya incident. Compromising on emotional and interpersonal character development to focus on driving the plot forward doesn't seem like a very wise creative decision. Take Megumi, for example. Gojo promised to fill him in on his father's fate, a moment fans were eagerly awaiting. But now, with Megumi under Sukuna's thumb and Gojo dead, that plotline seems abandoned. Megumi's quest to save his sister Tsumiki, who is now the 1,000-year-old sorceress Yorozu, also feels contrived and too convenient for Sukuna's plans. Her sudden demise at Sukuna's hands is supposed to be a big emotional punch, but since we barely saw their relationship, it falls flat. Yuji Itadori's arc suffers too. After losing his mentor and a close friend in Shibuya, you'd expect some deep emotional fallout. Instead, Yuji's story has been boiled down to rage and power-ups, making it hard for fans to stay invested. Todo, who reignited Yuji's fighting spirit in Shibuya, also vanishes from the plot without any update on his status, leaving fans hanging. Then there's Kenjaku, a major villain who gets anticlimactically beheaded by Yuta in a sneak attack. Even if Kenjaku's death isn't confirmed, it feels like a rushed exit for such a hyped antagonist. And Hana, a controversial new character, gets tricked and sidelined by Sukuna, leaving her arc feeling forced and unsatisfying. And of course, Gojo, the fans' favorite and, ironically, the author's least favorite character. Let's really get into him, shall we? Favoritism? Who? Where? Before Shibuya, there was the Hidden Inventory arc, which provided the perfect setup for Gojo Satoru's character and his motivations. We saw him brought up as a symbol, his birth itself a phenomenon that rocked the sorcerer world. He was the strongest there was, and he knew it. But that just meant that was all he was. A cog in the machine, a part of the big picture. He was not meant to be more. He was meant to serve sorcerer society as their biggest weapon against curses.
Yeah, screw that.
Why was everyone in a frenzy to rescue Gojo after he was sealed? Not because he was someone's friend or mentor, but because things had gone down the darkest turn and they needed their strongest weapon. That was why he struggled in finding meaning in what he did, with his sense of self. He relied on Geto to guide him and, unbeknownst to him, Geto relied on him. But after Geto's defection, he realized that he cannot be the strongest alone. Gojo's desire to change sorcerer society and foster strong allies was unknowingly all an effort towards not being alone in his burden. There are layers to his character that Gege Akutami sneaked in that people who just see him as arrogant, superficial and undeservingly overpowered completely gloss over. He's a well-written character, and you will admit it, damn it! When you get down to it, despite being lauded as the strongest sorcerer, despite that heavy title and all it entailed, despite all his bravado, Gojo was a sentimental fool who lost every time it really mattered. He lost his first battle with Toji after tiring himself out because he wanted to let Rika have fun for her last days of freedom. He went against everyone when he let Yuji Itadori live, which then led to the Shibuya arc, which is not to say that it wouldn't have happened either way. He got himself into the trap from hell that was the prison realm because he thought Geto had come back, and ultimately, he lost the big fight. He lost against Sukuna. And I have to say it, this decision, despite being controversial, fits with the theme. Gojo was meant to die. That final loss and the following death were the perfect culmination of his character. He lost because he was flawed. He lost because he was idealistic. And at the end of the day, he lost because he was human. Despite hating his character, Gege Akutami made the right decisions for him. But, of course there's a but here. I have said this before and I will say it again. Gege Akutami has this incredible knack for introducing unique concepts and setting up amazing storylines that manage to subvert expectations and keep you guessing. But also in the name of subverting expectations, Jujutsu Kaisen Post-Shibuya arc has shown that executing those concepts and storylines and bringing them to the finish line with the grace and respect they deserve is where Gege Akutami lacks. Because contrary to what all the outrage and the release of chapter 236 of the manga will lead you to believe, Gojo's death itself was not the problem. The way it was executed was perhaps where the fault lied. After leading us to believe Gojo had won, Gege Akutami made Gojo die off-screen. Jujutsu Kaisen's most popular character, one of the most well-written heroes of modern anime, Gojo Satoru died off-screen. All his carefully planned character progression that he underwent since the very beginning came toppling down at this moment. It was by far the biggest plot twist in the entire series, as no one had expected the fight between the greatest living Jujutsu users to end so abruptly. And unfortunately, unexpected doesn't always mean good storytelling, and Gojo's death left behind too many loose ends to deem it a satisfying end for his character. Honestly, was a respectable death like Nanami's too much to ask? I swear to God, when I catch you, Gege, I will! Adding to this, the fact that Sukuna managed to learn a technique that's powerful enough to instantly one-shot anyone has become a major problem for the series. Fans have dubbed the chapters following Satoru Gojo's defeats the Sukuna cycle, as they fall into a predictable pattern. A new hero steps into the arena, flaunts their best moves, and then gets swiftly crushed by the King of Curses. This formula, once thrilling, is now drawing significant fan backlash for turning what was meant to be Jujutsu Kaisen's epic showdown into an endless, monotonous loop. With the main characters already down for the count, the manga has started pushing long-forgotten side heroes like Kusakabe and Miguel into the spotlight. Unless Jujutsu Kaisen breaks free from this tiresome cycle soon, it risks losing many of its loyal fans. Nobara's death was another incident where fans were incredibly disappointed. Where for me it was unpredictable yet understandable, there were fans who couldn't believe that she had exited the story before her own development could even properly take off. Just like in the case of Gojo Satoru's untimely, undeserving death left fans hoping he would be resurrected, the hopes for which have now been dashed permanently, but we'll talk about that later. Nobara's unexpected end also left fans holding out hope that she will return. How hilarious the way Gege Akutami loves to just absolutely crumple beneath his feet. The hopes and dreams of all his fans like so much discarded trash. Hilarious, yes, but I can't decide if this quality in an author is ultimately for the better or worse. Let's talk about the latest chapters as well, shall we? It has probably spawned some of the more polarizing discourse in the series. I was really looking forward to finding out how Gege was going to deal with Gojo's return, and, well, I love it, but also don't. That panel of Gojo with his eyes closed leading straight into the panel of Yuta opening them is brilliantly executed. You can instantly tell it's Yuta's soul peering out. I love it and hate it at the same time. It's body horror done horribly right. And, side note, but this chapter retroactively makes Kenjaku saying Yuta Okotsu can't become the next Gojo Satoru, the funniest shit ever. With this, Yuta has been given a really good character arc. From regaining humanity and his will to live at the start of JJK 0 to willingly throwing it away to attain the power needed to protect the ones he cares about in 261. And it also puts into perspective why Yuta wanted to jump in to help Gojo during his fight and why he was held back. There was a backup plan, and we assumed it would be something along the lines of Yuta becoming the next strongest, but this way is so much better. It helps us digest Gojo's death a bit better as well. But you have to admit, this whole body swapping, body position thing has gone out of control with this series. How many times has it been now? Yuji and Sukuna, Kenjaku and Geto, Megumi and Sukuna, Hana and Angel, and now Yuta and Gojo. Damn. It's a bit gut-wrenching to realize how Gojo has now followed Geto's footsteps. If this chapter has taught me anything, it is that the importance of their relationship cannot be understated. They followed similar paths, with Gojo even admitting that he wanted to catch up to Geto. After being sealed, it seemed like Gojo's plan to raise a new era of sorcerers was abandoned. He realized that Geto might have been right all along. Gojo always hoped for a new generation of sorcerers to change the future of Jujutsu society and prevent another tragedy like Geto's. However, he eventually goes against his belief in sparing the higher-ups, deciding instead to kill them, much like Geto did when he defected. Now, with Yuta inhabiting Gojo's body, Yuta loses his place as one of the promised sorcerers meant to bring about this change. Now, with a 2-week hiatus to digest everything, fans are left hoping Gege can successfully develop this intriguing new arc and bring it to a satisfying conclusion. Fingers crossed, Gege. Fingers crossed. In the meantime, I think we can admit that Gege Akutami, despite all his alleged flaws, has really served with the art in JJK. His fight choreography is one of the best in the industry. Its fluidity and intensity really brings to life the impact of the story and its events. There are times when it is a bit inconsistent, but when it matters, Gege can really drop a masterpiece. There was one scene in the Shibuya arc that perfectly showcased Gege's ability to tell a compelling story through his chosen medium. Before being sealed in the prison realm, there was a moment where Gojo stood in front of it, and his reflection in the prison realm's eye had a black void in place of his face. And my god, did it encapsulate everything Gojo was at that moment. Lacking a sense of self, being hunted, and fighting as nothing but the strongest weapon. Without words, this moment of artistic brilliance brought a new world of impact to the scene of Gojo's sealing. Despite my critiques about the chapter's post-Shibuya arc and their repetitive nature, I have to admit that the non-stop fights in Gege Akutami's art style are incredibly hype and keep me as invested as the Dragon Ball Frieza fight. The relentless action with everyone throwing themselves at an unstoppable foe is truly captivating. Akutami's dynamic compositions and expressive line work bring the intensity of each clash to life, making every punch, kick, and curse technique feel powerful and exhilarating. The detailed backgrounds and dramatic shading further enhance the sense of chaos and urgency, making the fight scenes a visual spectacle that adds to the thrill of the story. And then in the anime, MAPPA made the whole thing better tenfold. All the battles in the Shibuya arc were insanely good. Such a thrill to watch. Really one of the best in all anime. The creativity and oomph of the Yuji vs Choso fight, the explosive brilliance of Mahoraga vs Sukuna and Hyogo vs Sukuna, and then Gojo and his ordeal before being sealed. Just insane. So much so that fans have literally gone crazy. Remember that scene of Gojo breathing heavily after running around killing curses before the effects of his domain expansion wore off? The Gojo girlies went wild. There have been incidents, plural, involving not just Gojo's action figure but Sukuna's too, that are simply too unspeakable to mention here. When did the JJK fandom drop so low it left the MHA fandom behind? Some people really need to go touch grass. But I have to say, if you're new to the anime, Don't let the fans and their unhealthy responses to fiction put you off experiencing a great story. Despite everything, Jujutsu Kaisen is one heck of a story. If Gege manages to bring it to a satisfying, worthwhile end, I would stand on rooftops and yell my heart out recommending it to people. Gege is telling a magical story in a realistic way, and it needs to be appreciated more. In the words of our underrepresented protagonist, Itadori Yuji, I won't regret the way I lived. And you will regret it if you don't let yourself experience this joyride at least once. A real, nah, I'd lose moment. Am I right?